Raf,
James.
big things
Wow.
happening out there in the market.
Yeah. Emergency episode.
Yeah, but we're just going to come out on a regular schedule. You know what? 3 years ago, when we were young bucks, with a twinkle in our eye and a swing in our step, we would have done an emergency episode and gotten it up in half an hour. But these days, we just don't have the energy anymore. We haven't got the drive.
I'm tired, James. I'm tired.
I'm tired. But yes, we were actually talking yesterday, what are we going to record the pod about this week? And we had a few half-baked ideas. But then, like a bolt from heaven, out of the blue,
Tim Cook is dead.
Oh my God. I read a different article to you. I read a less sensationalist take, which suggested that he has stepped down or is resigning. Resigning seems strong, but he's no longer the CEO of Apple, or won't be from September.
I mean, he's moving up to chair, correct?
He's becoming chair. After a 15-year stint at the top after Steve Jobs, he will no longer be the CEO of Apple. It's been reported for ages that this, like, the gears were turning for like succession planning. But the vibe was, this is kind of a bit of a surprise. I know there's been reporting that everyone's saying that it's further back than this, and he's still got some years left in him.
Yes, we talked about it a couple of months ago that there was like rumors of succession planning and all that kind of thing, which I think were probably trial balloons. Like they didn't want to shock the markets too much when they drop news like this, right? So little trial balloons here and there have been put out over the last few months. But yes, because there were some other things, like they were extending the tenure of the current chair. They kind of announced a few months ago, which suggested, yes, that this probably then wouldn't be happening for a little bit longer. So yeah, a little bit of a surprise in the timing. People did think it was maybe next year or the year after, but nonetheless, not like absolutely jaw dropping.
Not a huge shocker.
People knew it was coming sooner or later.
Totally. He's getting on years. It's a different era for the company now. Anyway, we're going to get into his tenure and what's going on, but just to put it at the top, his replacement is who Bloomberg and a bunch of others had been reporting was pretty likely to be the replacement. John Ternus used to be the head of hardware engineering background.
Again, I think we both said that he was most likely as well when we last mentioned this, because, we'll get into it. Hardware's the thing that you can be like, wow, that's working. Whereas a lot of other elements, it's like,
Is that working quite so well? Yeah. Anyway, so Timmy.
What can his career be defined by? His tenure as CEO of, at certain times, the world's largest company.
Yep. What is it now? The third, maybe? Second or third?
NVIDIA, Google, Microsoft, or is it Apple ahead of Microsoft? Yeah, well, quick ranking updates, market cap ranking updates.
I'm going to companiesmarketcap.com, which is normally a decent enough chronicle of what's going on in the rankings space. Apple is number 3. NVIDIA, Alphabet, Apple.
There you go.
And it's a bee's dick between Alphabet and Apple. 4.07 trillion to 4.01. And then NVIDIA's a fair bit ahead at 4.9.
A bee's dick.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. 50 bill.
Anyway, so bit of a background to remind people. Tim Cook, he used to be Apple's chief operating officer, came via Compaq. And I think it's pretty much the thing that he sort of made his name for before he became CEO and did everything after Steve Jobs died, is that he was like the engineer of Apple's supply chain, essentially. He was the ops guy, and he built like one of the craziest operations probably in business history, right?
Yeah.
And I think the big undergirding thing was just like optimize it to within an inch of its life, like the amount of supply that you hold. Obviously, he spearheaded a major move to China, making China the sort of manufacturing heart of Apple's operations. And also this idea of like using your operations and supply chain as like a weapon against competitors, like locking in purchasing agreements for years ahead of time. So it was kind of like, you can't actually build a competing product to our device because we bought all the screens.
Yeah.
All the screens have been purchased by us. All the batteries have been purchased by us. all the chips, everything is locked in for 3 years. So good luck.
Yeah, I guess, and I'm kind of coming up with this somewhat on the fly, but if you had to kind of define it, the three like key pillars I would say are, yes, one, China, like the moving things to China. Two, yeah, the sophistication of supply chain. Actually, I'm going to say a few things.
All right.
Three, vertical integration.
Yeah.
Like owning more and more of the stack, which we can maybe get into.
Yeah.
Four, squeezing suppliers.
Yeah.
And these are all kind of in that one basket of like the hardware.
Yeah.
And then if maybe we can get into later as well, some other things would be 5, services and services revenue.
We'll get into that in a big way.
And we'll get into that. And then like 6, Vision Pro and future of
the Vision Pro. All right. Well, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But yes, so back to what you're saying. So yeah, that idea of dominating the supply chain, getting deep, getting really deep. Like when you think about it, like this is a company that started off when they were looking to build the iPhone, going to Intel and saying like, do you have a chip, basically? Intel basically being like, no, we don't have anything. We want you to use an off-the-shelf one. There's actually differing opinions of exactly how this went down. But, basically they went to Intel and said, we want a chip. That has now changed to them designing their own ARM-based chip, obviously, but like putting in the orders of the RAM for TSMC. Like they work so closely with the fabs that are making the chips, designing their own chips, like owning that end-to-end kind of hardware stack. That's come a long way since the original iPhone was just like, I mean, it wasn't just like, but it was basically like, well, they didn't get an Intel one, but get an Intel chip, get us some Samsung glass, slap in a bit of some Samsung RAM and, a SanDisk hard drive, Bob's your uncle. Actually, it was a Samsung hard drive as well, right? A lot of Samsung. Don't quote me on some of those, but there's a lot of Samsung in the original. That was the whole thing with the hard drive for the iPod. Samsung were like, we made these tiny hard drives. I don't know. No one seems to want them. And someone was like, oh, we can maybe make an MP3 player out of that. Yeah, and that's kind of how it started. Anyway, that's going way off piece.
Probably this obviously wasn't just Tim Cook doing it, but I was reading about, and it reminded me, because I think people were posting screenshots from an article or a book about it. But like, originally the iPhone had a plastic screen, and Steve Jobs, like months out from launch, was like, this has been scratched by my keys in my pocket. It needs to be glass. It needs to be glass. And everyone on the ops side was like, that's crazy. It's going to happen. We're launching this in like 3 months. And they basically had to call up Corning and be like, do you have glass that could work for this? Corning was like, we developed this process in the 1960s for this like really hard glass, but we can't actually build it because none of our facilities are made to build it. And this is more of Steve Jobs' thing, him being like, yes, you will fucking do it. And they did it over the course of a few months. Obviously, that was, partially that was Steve Jobs' reality distortion shit, and partially like Tim Cook's operations thing, being able to actually pull that off. And I think that just, speaks to what his core competencies are.
Yeah, the other side of that is the kind of squeeze, as you said, that, Apple has been somewhat defined by, which is so many of their suppliers, having read a couple of books about it, basically the deal is we will give you huge volume, more volume than you've ever had before. We will invest in your own R&D. Like we will be with you as a partner to develop your next generation of whatever it may be. Screw.
Yep. Yeah, we'll help you build the equipment to build the next screw.
Exactly. Like we will be at the middle, but in return, you're not going to make any money. You're not going to make any money on this.
We are not paying any more than 2 cents for that screw.
Exactly. So you will possibly lose money working with us. However, you are now going to be the go-to place in the world for developing, whatever it is your product is.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the case. And that squeeze is obviously like, I mean, you either accept it or you don't. But to a larger degree, this is what people say about kind of Tim Cook in China. It's like, how responsible is Tim Cook for China's high-tech manufacturing rise? Like actually, though.
Extremely. Like... in a huge way, he is like a key figure in like China's modern industrialization. Just from like seeking margin, basically. Being obviously he didn't inaugurate the manufacturing move to China. That was an earlier thing than he was involved in. But definitely like on the high tech consumer, you can trace a line. Like Tim Cook is part of the story that goes from China opening up, joining the World Trade Organization to
that robot in the polo shirt running down the hill.
Yeah, exactly. The robot, the polo, running towards the mountains in Guangdong province or whatever. Or whatever the fuck BYD is doing or all that sort of shit. Tim Cook is a big part of that story. And it was all because of he was building this unbelievably intricate, as low cost as it possibly could get supply chain. Now, as I'm saying this, your immediate thought will be that is an extremely different skill set and interest zone than Steve Jobs had. Steve Jobs cut through all the mythology bullshit about him being the ultimate product guy or whatever. He was very obviously someone who had like a clear vision for computing and culture and how all the pieces fit and what he thought people were going to want. The classic thing of, knowing what they want better than they know, all that sort of shit. Even if you put aside some of the more dramatic ways people express that and like fucking culty ways of getting into it, he was obviously very good at that stuff. And it shows. He built the iPhone, which completely rewired the entire planet. Tim Cook is not like that. He's not a product guy. He is a mechanic. He's a wizard behind the scenes. I seriously doubt, even though they talk about the Vision Pro being his baby, first of all, we know that it was a flop. But second of all, do we really think Tim Cook was like sitting in design meetings and expressing a really strong view on like the curvature of the fucking faceplate or like the glass field on the Vision Pro? Was he going like thinking really hard about what kind of strap to use on it? Obviously, Steve Jobs did that. Tim Cook was probably thinking more like, I actually know a supplier in Shenzhen who could probably get that for 4 cents cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. Like he was the number cruncher guy.
Yeah.
And obviously there's all of the talk of economic decoupling.
From China.
All of this kind of stuff. Yeah, like from obviously, this is like a bigger deal. And so there is a part of it, it's like, will his legacy be, Apple are trying to, I guess, extract themselves from China.
Diversify at the very least.
Which it'll never happen, but, like fully. They're far too integrated. But like, will people look back and be like, he really got them in a pickle there? Or not? Or will people be like, what, like a weapon move,
So in his capacity as executive chair that he's going into, it was explicitly said in the announcement that basically part of that role is doing the politics. Like he's still going to be the guy who's probably trying to manage Donald Trump, trying to manage the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party, all that sort of shit. It's pretty clear that like he's quite good at that. And he's good at keeping people on side, avoiding tariffs, doing that kind of politics stuff. And it doesn't, like John Ternus is a fucking engineer who's been managing their engineering division, but is he gonna like walk into along the red carpet of the palace in Beijing and like defer to Xi? Maybe at some point. But for now, Tim is sort of keeping that role.
Which is smart.
Which is obviously smart. He's like, that's something that he's been doing for decades. But it's also
said like the amount of time that CEOs must spend on that shit rather than, running the company.
Apple is, for all intents and purposes, like a nation state, right?
Of course.
It's got the GDP, it has the political sway, whatever. So you've got to do that kind of glad-handing shit. He's obviously quite good at it. But I think, at the same time, I think, to answer your question, there's probably going to be a sense that like, John Ternus has been left to unwind some of the dependencies that Tim Cook locked in.
Yeah.
Like, I think, at least in the near-term future, there's going to be a sense of like, Apple are trying to drag themselves out of this pickle that has served them very well up until right now, and it's sort of fallen on the lap of this other guy to like deal with operationally.
Yeah.
So whatever. So we talked about like where he came from as COO. He was made the CEO of Apple after Steve Jobs tried to cure his cancer by drinking orange juice, which it
didn't work out.
Did not work out. I would be. If you've got cancer, I'm speaking to you, the listener. Go to the doctor. Go to your GP. They can sort of handle it from there. There's procedures and shit. The juice cleanse, it's got a hit rate of 0. So we talked about Steve Jobs, he saw himself as this like product visionary. Apple is like a visionary product company that like builds amazing shit, drags humanity forward, and like creates this bridge between technology and culture. That's what he had in his brain. Whereas Tim Cook, I don't think he's ever thought in those terms. You would be struggling to make him think like that. He was like, actually, what we have here is a luxury consumer business with like an unmatched global brand, like insane pricing power, and a huge captive audience who spend a lot of money with us and are ready to spend heaps more.
Yeah.
Like that's the way he thought about it, and he was like, "We're going to use the iPhone as the base, and we're going to find out every possible way we can get people to pay more and pay us
Yeah.
rent on that basis. Our real product is not really the iPhone; it's like the iPhone user.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
is our product." Which turned out to be a great bet, because if you stuck with the old plan, your entire business hangs off the fact of like, are people going to keep upgrading at a regular clip? Are they going to
Yeah.
buy the new iPhone when the new iPhone comes out? That's not really their core proposition anymore.
No.
It's like, yeah,
It was what you're saying here is like they don't just make money off selling phones.
pretty much.
It's now an ecosystem play that basically is like a subscription service. And the phones is just like whenever that happens, whenever that upgrade cycle happens, great, they still take margin on it and still a healthy margin on that. But they pivoted towards being a services business, basically.
Totally.
That is like Tim Cook era personified.
It's like, it's basically, it's a luxury membership club, and you pay across like your Apple subscriptions, like your cloud, your TV, your music,
Every app you download.
every app you download, the 30% that gets paid, well, it's not always 30%, it's variable, but a significant percentage that gets paid out of every app transaction, payments, the wallet, like they own the wallet as
Yeah.
well, and they're clipping the ticket on everything you buy with Apple Pay when you tap your phone. And then, like, as one of the benefits of this lovely luxury membership service that you've signed up for, you get the right, the privilege, I would say, to buy a new phone every 2 years or 3 years or whatever the upgrade cycle is for the average person. But it doesn't matter quite so much.
Now, so this has led to multiple criticisms, I think. And like there's kind of three main criticisms. So the first one is kind of a simple one that actually pisses me off as well. More and more leaning into advertising. And there's even a few directions you can go with this. When you got a company this massive, there's like everything can be broken out. So advertising, in one sense, just like Apple are not very much an ad company.
No.
From a user perspective, the thing that pisses me off the most, which is kind of recent, is ads in the settings. Like when you buy anything, having a friggin' notification that says like buy Apple Care, like a little red dot that it's really hard to get rid of. It's like buy Apple Care, buy Apple Care. So I'm not buying Apple Care from my Apple TV that's going to sit there and literally do nothing. Like I'm not going to do that. And it's so hard to dismiss. You have to like go in, acknowledge, and then dismiss to get rid of like the Apple Care. Like that's an ad in my settings.
Yes.
That no one else, no other app or whatever is allowed to do that. Random ads for like upgrade to Apple. Now I have Apple One, so I don't get like most of these anymore. But you used to get the like ads for Apple TV or whatever it is sitting in my settings.
Yeah.
Absolutely pisses me off.
I think they're fucking awful as well, in that like whenever I get a new device, I get like 5 prompts in a row at the top of my settings to get like claim my free membership or whatever, claim my free 1 month subscription to Apple TV or some shit. But because I already am subscribed to Apple One, I don't think I'm even entitled to that. And they're like, it's really hard to like dismiss the message. It keeps being like, no, but you have a month free. It's like, no,
you can't just view it. You have to go in and then like acknowledge it or whatever.
It's fucking awful. Yeah. I mean, this is one of the outputs, which is that they're a subscription business. Everything becomes a subscription. You can even fucking subscribe to the iPhone itself through like their financing shit now. It's sort of structured like a subscription now. Everything is a subscription, so they need to keep pumping you with that, right?
Well, exactly. You only have to do it once, right? Like someone somewhere internally is like, this leads to this much incremental revenue. And the issue there is like, every time we send this push notification or whatever it is, this is how much number go up. And, it's very hard to say no to, right? Internally. You can't be like, oh, this is over time, this will destroy brand value and trust with consumers or whatever. Like it's tough to be the person, the hero, standing up in the room.
Consumer.
Yeah, for once. Anyway, there's that on the consumer side, as well as just like the App Store is kind of another big area. Again, from the consumer side, I want to touch on before we get into like the developer side, where like that's become a complete mess. It is in Apple's interest to like have apps on the App Store, obviously, that people buy. I think if you search anything on the App Store, it's a mess now.
Yeah.
There are so many shit, low quality apps on there that like all in-app purchase. It's all kind of casino-esque games. I think the App Store is not a good experience.
I have not opened the App Store in a very long time. Like it's purely instrumental for me now. Like if I need the app for something, I'll search for it. And often I'll just search for it through like Spotlight on my phone and it comes up as the top result and I go, great, download. I need it to download for some service that I now have. I need to download the fucking Zero app. Okay.
Yeah.
Type in Zero into Spotlight. Don't even look at the App Store because it's horrible. And it's also getting worse. There was the it was actually kind of funny. Someone was talking to someone on X about, well, if AI has increased productivity software developers, show me the outputs. Where is all this new software? And then someone posted a screenshot of like the new iOS App Store submissions chart, and it's just fucking vertical over the past since Claude Code, basically.
Yeah, I believe the numbers again. Like this is directionally correct, right? I think it's correct. Last year was the most apps ever submitted to the App Store by double, and this year they've already doubled that number.
Yeah,
so it's just like going crazy.
So not the greatest signal for vibe coding or whatever, but also like that's, I think those stats came out in the sense that like Apple's already kind of tedious and annoying approvals processes for apps is just becoming more horrible because they're...
Well, this is the thing. This is why on both sides it's bad, because like what I'm saying here is like I think that they've let the quality of the apps they allow in the App Store get worse in order to drive subscription revenue. And like they're happy to have these games that are basically gambling for children's and loot boxes and, with all like every mechanic in it driving people to purchase friggin' gems, which add absolutely no value. But on the flip side, developers are like, who are trying to make actual apps and that maybe aren't, I mean, whatever, they can make whatever else they want, are like, the process has gotten way harder. You don't even know why you rejected. It's like a bloody, what's the cliche? The trial by,
the Kafka.
It's bloody Kafka-esque. Kafka-esque. Just applying to have your app reviewed.
You're dead right.
Getting nothing back. So on the developer side, developers pissed off. Plus, having the App Store being a complete mess, you have to do the thing like on Amazon, etc., and Google and whatnot, where you have to bid on your own keywords now. So developers are mad about that, having to bid on. I make an app and then I have to like pay Apple in order for them to show me when people search for my app on the App Store. Blah blah blah. As well as they just like developers are mad at the 30% or the 15 to 30% cut, and Apple just not moving on it. So everyone's pissed off. Developers are pissed off because it's too hard to get in the App Store, but then as a user, it's like it seems way too easy to get on the App Store.
Yeah. And I think, this is all also downstream of like the Cook doctrine. And it's part of the reason that like Apple have freaked out so much about all the various antitrust things. Services is now what, like $100 billion business? I think it's about that. Could be more. Like structurally it hangs off clipping the ticket and collecting these rents and these subscriptions and all the rest of it, which is why they freak out when Europe starts being like, maybe you shouldn't take that much of a cut, or maybe you should allow alternate app stores, because they're like, we've built the whole business around this. Like, if anything, iPhones are now a funnel, even though they're very expensive hardware and they make a lot of money off it, it's a funnel into this world where we're clipping tickets all over the shop. And you're saying we can't?
Yeah, which again pisses off developers, because in order for Apple to defend their cut, they have to be very rude about the developers, basically being like, it's a privilege to be on our App Store. These businesses wouldn't exist without us. You would not exist without us.
They're using our beautiful APIs.
Yeah.
And what do we get? Nothing. They spit in our faces. They demand more money. Anyway, I mean, again, this is all Cook. I mean, obviously it's not all Cook, but he's the one this is the vision he's laid down from the top. It's like, we are a ruthless cash printing machine. You could put it this way. He was like, Steve Jobs was like a 1 in a million, 1 in 10 million, 1 in a billion businessman. I'm not going to be him, but I can certainly take what he built and just bleed it. I can get every cent out of like the vision he laid down. But yeah, the second side of it, which I think is what you were leading into, is that I won't say that they have not been innovative, because they have, but like they're not setting the agenda on most things and haven't been across his tenure, right? They're not releasing a lot of world-changing products. We'll break it down. The last products that you could say were real like market defining and have like ruled the roost, they weren't necessarily inventing things, but they're kind of leading, are probably like AirPods, Apple Watch.
Yeah.
Those are like 10 years old now.
Yeah.
AirPods turned 10 years old this year, which is wild. That's certainly longer than I would have thought. Everything else, apart from Apple Silicon, which is, I think, the exception that proves the rule, in the sense that like that was a crazy maneuver.
Yes.
But also like kind of downstream into things that Cook is good at. Like the reason they were able to do that yes, they've got great chip designers, but it's also because of this crazy supply chain that he built out that like made it possible to do that sort of mid-air transfer from Intel to Apple Silicon.
On the computers, yeah.
But everything else, the car died, Vision Pro, flop. Everything else is just refinements. They're doing better laptops. They're not creating category-defining things. And then obviously, we've gone back and forth and thinking about how they're approaching AI, but I think we can say comprehensively that their strategy and approach has been like pretty muddled and like all over the shop.
No, totally. No. I mean, it's obviously caught them extremely flat-footed, and they've changed strategies multiple times.
Yeah.
From that now famous, WWDC, where they announced all these features that still haven't shipped years later.
2 years later, yeah.
Like that's
which is crazy.
Nuts.
Yeah,
that are still supposedly coming one day. So it's an interesting time for him to leave because it's like he made the big bet with the Vision Pro, which, let's be honest, like I'm sure that I know that people have been thinking about frigging glasses and VR for a very long time, and they would, it takes far longer than just like the recent metaverse craze for that to come out. But it feels like metaverse adjacent, right? The Vision Pro, which again, hardware is banger. We know that. Like it's fantastic hardware. It's just what's it for is the basic thing.
What and who is this for? It turns out
what and who is this for?
Very few people.
And so that, if you think about big, broad kind of strategic movements, that is kind of metaversey adjacent, which everyone has worked out is not it and has kind of moved on from.
Yeah.
And AI is like a miss the boat. So it probably makes sense for him to bow out at this point in a way where it's like from the top, because at the end of the day, he still has to take responsibility. This is an absolutely massive company, and there's it's not just him deciding we should go for AI now or whatever. It's where that they've, they place their priorities like over the course of years. Obviously, in some places like Nvidia and Google, they saw the AI thing coming a long time ago and started producing their chips for it. And don't be wrong, Apple saw some form of the AI stuff coming. They've got the neural processing unit on their devices, more for like background things, photo identification, text prediction, these kind of little models or whatever. So like to a certain extent, there was obviously internally people know about AI at Apple, and they were dedicating some resources, but not in the way that it's happened now. So I think being like, okay, I threw my chips in with the Vision Pro, which has not been a commercial success. We probably strategically are still working out what we're doing with AI. We're in a great place though from a P&L perspective. Like the stock's at all-time highs. It's like from that perspective, which is effectively at the end of the day, that's what the CEO's job is to market cap. He's been an unbelievable success. So it means it's a good time for him to bow out, is what I'm kind of saying. But, time will tell. Is like quote unquote missing AI, not developing their own internal leading frontier model, is that going to be a generational miss that means that the company is doomed in 5 to 10 years? Right now, I don't think so, but time will tell. Who knows? The VR stuff, will that turn out to actually be like, oh shit, we are all in VR now, in 5 or 6 years, and that was actually an incredible move to be at the forefront of that all that time ago in whatever it was, 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the most generous read you can have on the Vision Pro, is that like it was sort of a gauntlet of hardware experience that is now helping them build the smart glasses that they're apparently building, or like whatever future technologies. But again, I mean, that sounds like a very meta-y excuse where it's like, wow, we burned $100 billion or whatever the hell it was, not that much, but whatever. So not that far off actually on the metaverse, and well, it turned out to be a bunch of crap that no one cared about. But we learned a lot. We made a lot of friends along the way.
Yeah,
it's not normally the sort of thing Apple tends to like to. And they said the same thing about the car, really.
Yeah, but I think the car they were like was like 10 billion or something got sunk into that or whatever. And but they claim like, oh yeah, we used a lot of our learning for Apple CarPlay and whatnot.
Yeah, and for the Vision Pro and for all this other stuff. Which again is kind of like a funny cope. When it comes down to it, it's like, I don't want to dwell on the car too much, but it's like, considering everything we just described about what Apple has done, a car is just a crazy business for them to get into. An extremely expensive purchase that people rarely update or upgrade, with an insane amount of competition. And I would say it was like the Chinese competitors were one of the reasons they were like, okay, fuck, this is bullshit. We're not going to win here. When it was Tesla, maybe. But when it's Xiaomi and like every second-rate Chinese manufacturer, we are just wasting our time.
Well, apparently, I mean, with the car, and we talked about this at the time when it was finally killed, which was never obviously officially announced or anything.
Yeah.
Like apparently what the initial, like their initial sketches or something, the back of the envelope, like initial pricing was like, it came in at like 300,000 American dollars or whatever. It's like, okay, no one's going to buy this.
Yeah, a car is not like a phone where someone is like, all right, I'll scrimp and save and I'll like really make it happen and I can get a cheaper version or I can get a contract or whatever. It's like you can sort of squint and sit out with a car, but when it's like an ultra luxury premium vehicle and like you're looking about very complex and extortionate leasing arrangements, it becomes a very different. And all for the goal of what? Into like A, having an Apple car, but B, integrating them into the services more.
Well, see, this is another thing that kind of came and went with Cook, and that I wonder, was this more like a hangover from jobs that he inherited, or was he the architect of and then lost interest? And that's like Apple Home and that ecosystem, because the car I feel like is part of that.
Yeah.
Home pods, Apple Home, HomeKit, all this stuff that Apple obviously do not dedicate a lot of resources to.
Yeah.
Like they rarely update these HomeKits. They pulled the modems. They're not doing, they stopped doing the modems. I feel like there was, again, the strategy would have been like every house has Apple modems with Apple Homes in every room. You're using Siri, your family shared calendars, and everything is like run through Apple. So you're fully locked into the ecosystem. And now you're also buying apps on the Home Pods. And, we've talked about this on Darren. There was that moment where like people were like, literally all interfacing with computers will be voice by 2021 or whatever it was. And like, and your games will be all by voice. And like, you'll just be constantly using your voice and interacting with computers with voice.
Yeah.
And, smart home goes into that and blah, 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 blah. And, like everything will be automated. When I like open doors, it'll like send an email to my wife saying that like, would you
The
like
door
a
is
coffee,
open, my
darling?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, like, and that turns on the coffee machine, and like, I know the weather, and I suggest the shoes I wear, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I feel like there must have been something in Steve Jobs' head where he was like, we've bought Siri, we've put it in the iPhone 4. This is like 2010. Again, Siri's 16 years old. That's so funny. And he's like, I've got a vision for what we're doing with this. And then he drank orange juice and died. And then everyone was like, people were like, did anyone catch what Steve said he wanted to do with this voice thing we just bought? He was like, I must have misplaced his memo about that. So we'll just sort of faff about for a while. But you definitely, like, there was a vision, I think, where he was like, this is it. This is the success of the touchscreen. This is going to control your whole life. But
it's completely underinvested, right? Like,
no,
the thing is, they've kept on releasing the products.
Yeah.
Like, they did a revision of the HomePod. But again, the HomePod, this is a device that obviously should be made for AI. It's got a friggin' watch chip in it.
Yeah.
Like, it can't, it's got no RAM. Like, it can't do anything.
But they were also talking about, they're working on this not kitchen, but like household robot, which is like the iPad on an arm.
Yes.
Which every time they do a new round of reporting on what Apple's working on, this fucking robot arm with an iPad attached to it keeps coming up.
Well, it's like an old like iMac kind of thing that supposedly like turns to face you in the kitchen so that you can be cooking and wandering around the kitchen while you're FaceTiming someone and the screen is following you. This sounds real harebrained. This sounds like this is going to be like $2,500 for a monitor that follows you while you walk around.
We can lock in the prediction though. If they do announce this, the announcement video is going to have exactly what you just described as like its central conceit is walking around the kitchen cooking a roast or something.
Yeah, I'm buying it. By the way, this actually is something that I'm buying.
You just sold yourself. You've invented an ad and it sold you. That's like
that's how good I am, man.
That's the ultimate marketer flex. Is I can put products in my own brain. So my takeaway from this is that because John Ternus, it sounds like from all the reporting, Bloomberg and whatever else, he's a product/engineering guy. Like he's worked on Apple's.
I mean, the hardware is fantastic, as we've said. The chips are just unbelievable, strength to strength. Like incredible that they've gone from. Yeah, like making little phone chips to those little phone chips being the best chip in the world.
Yeah, totally. And like Intel's still figuring out how to catch up with like the M series stuff. That's crazy. And obviously, so he comes from like that product side of things, amazing. But it also sounds like he comes from like the Cook School of Management, which is like deliberate about making decisions, a good political operator, all this rest of it. It sounds like they're trying to thread the needle between some commercial continuity. Like, let's keep the Cook program rolling and all the bits that I have, but let's like mix in a little bit of like product thinking from the very top. I think that's kind of what they're trying to do. I don't know, like, so they've put it, they laid this out by having him appear in the keynotes and do sit down interviews, very obvious succession planning. After seeing that stuff, he didn't like leap out at me as like, oh, this is the charismatic product frontman that they are obviously trying to engineer. But also, like, you know, whatever. He's not that public. Whereas even Tim Cook, even though he's very clearly not like a massively charismatic guy, was like, he's always ambiently around saying something or like being present or doing the thing. He never ever got good at doing keynotes. Like, he was always seemed like he was talking about a product he wasn't personally that familiar with. Like, well, anyway.
Absolutely. Well, at least Ternus is a bit younger though as well. So like, and presumably uses a computer and not an iPad. Let's hope.
Yeah, that's
because
right.
because the Mac is in a rough spot, I reckon, from a software perspective.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot they need to do in that space, and hopefully, yeah. They also moved. I don't know if you saw Johnny Sruji, the chip guy, who there was rumors that he was leaving Apple, and it seems like that fired them up massively because they were like, "Oh, this is the fucking golden goose here." He's been made like new job chief hardware officer, which is just a shiny new job title, I guess.
Yeah.
To Brabham.
Well, the other thing, like, can we do a quick also wrap up of other stuff, or especially Apple? Like, Mac Pro is gone.
Yeah,
you see that? No more Mac Pro.
Again, the Mac Studio is just it. They don't need.
I mean, they can't. Like, when they moved to the M chips, it's just like they couldn't make that machine.
There's no justification. I mean, like, what was it aside? Yeah, exactly. It's all system on chip.
Mac Pro, for people who don't know, that was the big beast
workstation,
one. Like the
workstation
desktop.
computer.
It was like the only old-fashioned looking rectangular desktop. The justification was that if you go into a big movie studio or into a recording studio, there would be one of those sitting there.
And they used to be. Like, that was a signal that you were in a serious joint.
Yeah.
They had like a big old Mac Pro workstation.
Yeah, but that's gone. So I don't know, which is kind of interesting, the hardware guy at the top, but, you know, it makes sense. Some people are very sad about that. There's no world in which I was ever going to buy one of those, so I'm not that sad. But, you know, there you go. The times there are changing. There is no more computer-looking computer by Apple.
And also, like, part of its deal originally was, like, extensibility. Like, you could put RAM in it.
You could add graphics cards. That was basically the point.
And now, like, that's not even remotely what Apple is trying to do anymore. They just want to give you... Yeah, they want to give you a Mac Studio and be like, if you can use this for a while, and if you want another one, then buy the next Mac Studio.
Yeah, totally.
Which, to be like, I'm currently, like, I have a M1 Mac Studio, M1 Max, I think, or whatever. It's pretty decked out. It's got like 64 gig of RAM and whatever. And like, I was thinking about it, the M1s, these came out like 5 years ago? I think this computer's 5 years old. It's like...
It's still sick.
It's still sick. I've got like no reason to upgrade it. There's no reason for, like, there's nothing that I throw at it that it can't do. Yeah. So it's like, what's the... And I mean, obviously I'm not doing insane workloads, but for me, it's like the perfect computer. It's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I've still got an M1 MacBook Pro that's still fire. I'm using it as my home server.
The M1 MacBook Air. I would confidently put the M1 MacBook Air as like on the pantheon of the best products they've ever released.
Yes, agreed. I love that. I love that device so much.
It would, and like, obviously, when I say M1 MacBook Air, I could like mentally include all the succeeding ones because they're basically the same computer with a new chip in it. But, you know, that was the big dog. And like, you know, we've sucked it off in the past before. But
we have sucked it off hard.
But the moment when it was like, they did this big transition, everyone was like, this is going to be a clusterfuck because the last time they did a transition to a new chip architecture on their computers was a clusterfuck. And it was like, no, it actually worked perfectly. And all the software is just instantly faster, even though it's being emulated.
Well, that's right. The emulated versions were faster than running on the Intel. It's crazy. Like, yeah. And so that will be a big dub.
That was a big dick moment. Yeah.
I mean, for Tim Cook, if like looking back, being like, oh, moving to their own laptop chips, assuming the laptops will continue to exist in the future, that's a big win. Yeah. Like, so I think that if looking back in 20 years' time, if Apple's still around, if any of us still around, like the M series will be like, oh yeah, that Tim Cook fella, and China potentially, I think are the two big ones people will remember.
The M series and China. Actually, the other thing, and we didn't mention,
which go hand in hand.
They do. The other thing we maybe should have mentioned his management level, because we're talking about, you know, turning Apple from a product-led company into sort of this services and cash printing machine. The other side of it was like the financial engineering that he made happen. We sort of alluded to it with the stock, but like he basically engineered the biggest stock buyback programs ever, maybe.
Yeah, true.
Like he's returned something like, what is it, like $600 billion or something to shareholders through stock buybacks, which is just driving the earnings per share up and up and up and up, which is one of the reasons that, Warren Buffett, who famously said, I don't like investing in tech because I don't get it. I missed Google because like, I don't know, I've never used a computer, so why the fuck would I understand a search engine? But he looked at Apple and was like, okay, durable consumer business. It's like a really expensive toothpaste in terms of how people buy it.
Yeah.
And also returns a insane amount of money in dividends.
Yeah, in an incredibly disciplined fashion.
Yeah, all right, I'll buy that. I don't need to understand a computer to get what you're putting down, Timmy.
Totally.
That's the other part of it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Stock prices through the roof. Yeah. That and turning into a services business. I think they are the big ones.
If you put in $1, every dollar you put into Apple when Tim Cook took over as CEO is now $11. In terms of like a CEO tenure, you can't. It's hard to beat.
No, absolutely. I just wanted to quickly end on, because did it happen just after we recorded last week, or did we forget to talk about it? Like the Allbirds, or did we talk about it and I've forgotten? Allbirds turning into a data center company.
Yeah. Well,
like we obviously like a million, every single person in the world like texted me about that.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people. I got a few messages being like, "I can't wait for the down round to get into Allbirds." Actually, we should put it in front of the paywall because it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, yes, we talked about Allbirds in the context of them selling,
of going bankrupt. Oh yeah, selling. Yeah.
Well, not going bankrupt, but being sold for $39 million to American Exchange Group, which is like, as far as I can tell, sort of just like a brand graveyard. They're just like a holding company that picks up distressed fashion assets and then does God knows what with them. But yes, the big switch.
They're crazy. We dedicate an entire episode to a shoe company, and then within days
it becomes an AI company.
It becomes an AI company. So good. Yes. There's a reason we talk about this, folks.
We didn't just talk about shoes for no reason. But yeah, no, obviously this is now coming on a week later, but the big news is that Allbirds is rebranding as Newbird AI using the same NASDAQ ticker, Bird, and is now becoming an AI infrastructure and compute play with a $50 million in convertible notes by an unnamed investor. Most charitable read is just a backdoor listing. Like, it's this guy who's been like,
exactly.
You're not doing anything with your stock ticker because you're about to fucking collapse into bankruptcy. So give us Bird.
Yeah.
Give us Bird.
Then we don't have to list. It's basically a SPAC.
It's pretty much a SPAC, and we will then buy up NVIDIA chips and lease them or whatever. Other side of the scale, this is just a total scam by unnamed investor.
It's a pump and dump.
It's a pump and dump to grab some AI hype, sell off to retail morons, and then you're out the door. You're living in the Caribbean, kicking your feet back, sipping on Mai Tais, having a sick time.
Because to be clear, at some point it was up like 800% or something like that. Like it went crazy.
What is it? I'm just gonna, at the time of recording, which is on Tuesday. Yeah, it went up like 600% thereabouts, and now it fell from there, down only 35% from that height. So its market cap is now 95 million, whereas before it went down to below or like 30-ish. So it's like, obviously it's pumped. I'm going to lay down my predictions. I don't think Newbird AI is actually going to become a AI infrastructure compute player of even minor note. I don't think those chips are getting bought.
50 million is not much.
It's nothing. And convertible notes obviously being like an instrument you can put in. You give them capital with the idea that it later turns into equity. They're used in lots of many, many legitimate circumstances. But yeah, I feel like this is just a pump and dump. I'm not seeing the vision here. But it's sad.
Could be the next Apple.
It could be. Imagine that. Imagine if Tim Cook was like, and by the way, I've taken a new job. I'm CEO of Newbird AI. I'm getting in. I missed the AI boat once. Never again.
Right.
Beautiful.